See you. Well, he's a member of the U.S. national rugby team and also your Seattle Seawolves, who have 2 regular season home matches left, which you can see on Fox 13 Plus starting next Sunday. Joe Taufete'e, thanks so much for coming in. I got that right?
Yeah, that's actually the best I've ever heard it said.
I've been practicing all afternoon. And of course, the Seawolves currently in second place in the Western Conference. It's 9-3, fighting for playoff position right now. What's this season personally been like for you, your first season in Seattle?
Yeah, I mean, I've started my career overseas, so being back stateside has actually been pretty nice to be close enough to see family. But being in Seattle is probably the best move we've ever made coming back, because in England, the weather's kind of similar to this,
right.
So you're kind of used to it. So my family's used to it, my kids are used to it. So yeah, it's been tremendous.
You mentioned overseas in England, also in France, a couple other teams in Major League Rugby. How does the fan support here kind of compare to other places you played?
Yeah, it's a bit different, in terms of, the sport in general. It's kind of newer in the U.S., so we don't have a big base like you would in England or in France.
Yeah.
And, we get close to 30,000 in overseas in that kind of stand. But over here, we're trending around 2,500 or so.
Yeah, so, and it's been really fun. I'll say from personal experience, even if you don't know a lot about rugby, with that home crowd at Starfire in Tukwila, it's easy to become a fan because of all the energy out there. A nice win for you guys, by the way, last week after a couple close losses. What do you think the team has learned from the recent 3-game stretch that's going to only help you down the stretch of the regular season?
Yeah, I mean, for the past couple of weeks, we've kind of been dealt with a bad hand. We had a couple injuries. But where we kind of built ourselves a cushion was in the beginning of the season, where we kind of let up was 8-1, and then we continued that kind of streak going on. So we kind of bought ourselves a little bit of time, but then obviously with playoffs coming in the picture, it's getting real scary, towards to the end of the season.
Yeah, it's coming down to the wire, and Houston leading the league right now. You guys lost to them by only 2 points earlier this season. Seattle, obviously a championship contender in the past. What has to happen this year, do you think, to win a 3rd title?
Yeah, we just have to stay in the fight. In terms of longevity, these players, we're getting beat up every week, and so trying to keep the bodies healthy and really come out firing, and staying consistent throughout the year. Obviously, Houston have done that really well, and we're kind of in their foot tracks, right behind them.
One of the beautiful parts about rugby is you have so many different body types in different positions. I mean, you were a defensive tackle in college, correct?
Yeah, so I started playing football, and defensive tackle was my main position. And you only stick to one position on defense, and vice versa. As rugby, you get to play everything.
Yeah, and your current wife now convinced you to play rugby. Is that how it all went down?
Yeah, so it's a bit of a crazy story now that I look back on it. So my wife, she kind of introduced me to her family, right? And so, we're having dinner with the family, and then we started talking about rugby. So, I heard of rugby before growing up in California, but, they're talking about these kids who are the same age as me. And, I'm like, okay, maybe this is kind of my way into the family table and, start having conversations about me. But, and then I signed up for the U19s in Belmont Shore. And then, rest is history, and she was the one who convinced me to kind of, take it the long way through.
Well, you play hooker is your position, right?
Yeah.
It's part of the tight 5 that are usually involved in scrums for those who aren't aware of the game or very familiar with the game. How does that compare between the 2 sports of rugby and football?
It's like night and day,
yeah.
Skills wise, and then also, when it comes to rugby, it's more of a longevity game, so you're going to have to repeat those efforts for 40 minutes, because, it's a game of 2 40-minute halves. So that kind of changes your perspective on how you want to train and how you want to play. But rugby can set you up for so many other sports as well. Football, you get football players coming in, working on their tackle technique, because, a lot of players, they want to be safer when they play different sports, and then rugby is a good way to start getting into that technique.
There's no question about that, especially with tackling as well. Joe has 22 tries at the international level for USA Rugby. That's more than any other player in the tight 5. A try, by the way, the rugby equivalent of a touchdown in football. Where do you think this sport's going to be popularity-wise in 7 years from now, when the Rugby World Cup comes to the United States for the very first time?
I think it'll be a huge trend upwards. I mean, when the rugby actually went into the Olympics. It was a huge upspring of just youth players trying to get involved, you know, because now it's in the Olympics. We want to be a part of that. We've got World Cups as 15s, you know, players, but yeah, that's only going to get better because then we're reaching, you know, younger kids, and then you get them started earlier, you know, just as a extracurricular activity or sport.
Well, first things first, a home match next Sunday against Utah. You can buy tickets at the Seawolves website, and then again, the next 2 home matches are on Fox 13 Plus, your official Seawolves partner. Joe, thanks so much for joining us, and best of luck the rest of the season.
Thank you for having me.
Cool. Yeah.